Hi there, welcome to the Love Movement. My name is Asanda. We continue to explore the love of God, the love of Jesus, and the love of the Holy Spirit. The last time we spoke about God not being a man, because as I explained last time, that this gender thing is actually deeper than anything that we can fathom, because he mentioned that we are his bride. Therefore, if you are female, if you're male, God still sees you as his bride. God is so different from the fathers that we've known or from the women that we've known. I want to share with you a story on this, and this comes from the Bible, which happens to be a love story on its own. There was a man named Abram at the time, and he was married to a woman. Her name was Sarai. They were an old couple and they didn't have any children, but God had assured Abram that he would have a son, he would have a child. So the wife decided to assist God in this mission. And back in the day, your servant was actually subject to you. You could do anything that you wanted basically with your servant. And they happened to have servants. Interestingly enough, the way they got the servant was through a lie. They had visited Egypt at a time of famine, and Abram told Sarai to lie and say that she's his sister. And then the servants of Pharaoh saw that she was an attractive woman, and they wanted her to be the wife of Pharaoh. So they took her into basically Pharaoh's compound. But God revealed to Pharaoh that this is actually Abram's wife. Pharaoh had already given Abram servants, he'd given him cattle, he'd given him land, just as a favor, saying that he's given his sister to him. One of the servants happened to be Haggai, the same Haggai that Sarai gave to Abram to be the wife, since she couldn't have children. At the time, Sarai told Abram that no, you can marry this woman. I'm paraphrasing. You can read the story for yourself in the Bible. You can take her and you can have a child, saying that I'm old. And she even mentioned that this will be our child, right? So that happened. Haggai got pregnant, and then she started giving Sarah attitude. And Sarah went back to Abraham and said, you know what? May this sin be upon your head, because this woman is actually giving me attitude. What surprised me was Abram's response to this, because he actually said to her, this is your servant. You can do anything you want with her. And yet, this is a woman who he has married, so to speak, and who's actually carrying his child. You know? So Sarah was very mean towards Haggai, to a point where she actually ran away. If you've been pregnant, you'd understand that when you're pregnant, your hormones are up and down and they go helter-skelter. You can't even control the things you do at times. It's no excuse, but it just happens like that. So she actually ran away in her pregnant state, and she ran away into the wilderness. But look at what love did. God sent an angel and asked her, Haggai, what are you doing here? And she told him that, no, I ran away from Sarai. And God said to her, no, go back. Go back. You are pregnant and you're going to have a son. And with the name of the son, you must call him Ishmael. God gave the son that name. He called him Ishmael. And that name means God listens. God commanded her to go back to Sarai, and she will give birth to a son. And this son was going to be great, and God will bless the son. So she went back and she gave birth. And Abraham called the son Ishmael, like the Lord had already said, that his name means God listens. This was the firstborn son of Abraham. Story continues. After the birth of this, God came to Abraham again and said, you know what? I'm still going to bless you. But I'm going to bless you. You're going to have an offspring through your own wife, which is Sarai. And I'm going to make a covenant, an everlasting covenant through Sarai, right? But this didn't mean that God didn't love Ishmael. I had always assumed that Ishmael was a mistake that Sarah had caused to happen. But when I see that even what human beings look at and think that is a mistake, to God it never is. Because that boy at that time God is the one who called him. God is the one who named him, actually, because God always knew. We live lives that are predestined. God is never surprised about anything that we do. Even the mistakes that we make in life, they don't take God by surprise, that now he needs to find out how he's going to juggle things through. God is not like that. He knows every step. He had our lives written in a book before we were even in a pot in our parents' wombs. So there's nothing like a person who's a mistake with God. There's nobody that God doesn't love. I ignored the story of Ishmael in my own ignorance, because in some way I always assumed that God he must have favorites. But clearly, for him to even take what Sarah was not even regarding as a blessing, because there was a time that after the birth of the second son, which was Isaac, Sarah felt that no, Ishmael and the mother must actually leave the compound. And God said to Abram, no, let them go, because God had already had a plan. But look at Abraham, knowing that he's the father of this boy, he let him go, but God had already made a plan. God met with them again and said, no, I heard the boys cry. I heard the boys cry because at that time Haggai thought the boy was going to die. They had no water, they were out in the wilderness. And God came down and spoke to her again and said, you know what? I've heard the boys cry. And he opened her eyes and she could see far that there is water there that is available for them to drink. And God assured her again that I'm going to bless him exceedingly. I'm going to make a great nation out of him. I'm going to give him princes. He's going to have children. Ishmael actually had 12 sons. When you compare at the time between Isaac and Ishmael, what did it look like? Didn't it look like Ishmael was more favored by God? Because he had 12 sons. One thing we need to understand, we all have our destinies. We might be siblings, we might fight, but we all have different destinies with God. God is bigger than anything that we can comprehend. Just because we're born in the same families, it doesn't mean that we have to go through the same paths. I've got siblings and we used to fight a lot with my siblings. But something happens with age. When you grow up and you mature, you get to realize that, you know what, this is an individual, I'm also an individual. And God takes us into different paths, which is exactly what happened with Isaac and Ishmael. The story continues, and I'm going to share with you what exactly happened between Isaac and Ishmael on the next episode. Thank you for joining us. Cheers for now.